The little red light is off. It's rolling, right?
You're an idiot.
Uh-huh. All right, hello everyone, my name is Jake. I am a filmmaker and I run Mediaverse Studios, which is where we are now. This is our little office studio setup, and this is where we're going to be starting to do some gear reviews and some sort of talking head educational type videos for filmmakers. So I do a lot of work with cameras and lenses and other gear that we use to make films, commercials, narrative films, documentaries, shorts, things like that. So today I'm going to be talking to you about a kit of gear that I've been using in the past year or so. And it's something that not many people may have seen or used before, but it's worth talking about because it's a very interesting piece of kit. So today I have a set of vintage lenses. These are a set of lenses that I have done some work on to make them useful for cinema use, but on their own, they're very interesting. These are a line of vintage Super Takumar lenses from Pentax, formerly known as Asahi Company. They come in all kinds of focal lengths from 24 and even smaller fisheye lenses. I think there's a 17 out there, all the way up to 200 millimeter at various intervals and various f-stops. What I have today are the 35, 50 millimeter, 105, and 135. That finger doesn't work so well to get up there. All right, so Super Takumar lenses. So these lenses were originally made for photography. They are spherical lenses. They have a clicked aperture. I believe this 50 goes all the way down to an f1.4. Has a very nice long focus throw on it. The Asahi company started making lenses between the 1960s and 1970s. The Super Takumar line came about around 1962. After that, they came out with the Super Multi-Coated Takumar, which added some more lens coatings to handle things like chromatic aberration and flaring and fringing. Now, what I liked about this Super Takumar lens specifically was the fact that they flared so beautifully. They didn't have a super contrasty image, and they were able to bring in a lot of nice optical qualities. Speaking of optical qualities, all of these lenses have a coating on them. The coating was done to combat chromatic aberration, but it turns out that it was radioactive. The coating was thorium dioxide. They coated every lens element. You can see that kind of browning on the lens. When thorium dioxide ages, it starts to get this browning effect. So on this 50 mil specifically, it does have sort of that yellowish brown hue, which I tend to like, but it can also be corrected in color grading. You can also throw a UV light, or you can throw one of these little IKEA plug-in lamps right down the barrel, put some aluminum foil on the back, and the light from this bulb will actually retract that browning effect. It'll start to, fix the particles of that coating that have turned brown, kind of re-energize them. On a molecular level, what's happening is basically there's a decay going on, and then it's giving off different wavelengths of light as light bounces off of it, yada, yada, yada. This fixes that. So does UV light, so does sunlight. But yes, these are radioactive lenses. They're not terribly radioactive. There's nothing to worry about here. I read somewhere that if you were to snuggle up with one of these lenses and sleep with it all night, you'll have gotten about as much radiation as you would if you ate a banana. Now, one thing that you may want to look out for is the radioactive decay shooting off particles. It may affect your film. Over time, they were able to notice that there was some fogging on exposed film during long exposures. If you leave it on your digital camera for too long, it may or may not affect the sensor. I'm not sure. I haven't done any long-term testing, but it's not something I want to be concerned with, so I am just taking the lenses off every time I use them. I'm not going to leave these lenses attached to my camera. There were a few different generations of the Super Takumars, one with 7 blades, one with 8 blades. The 8-bladed design is obviously more sought after, but the 7-bladed design is what I have here, and I like it just fine. It still has a nice bokeh in the back. It still has a decent sharpness at higher f-stops. At the f1.4 on this 50 millimeter, things are pretty soft, and it's a razor thin line of focus, so you might want to stop up to a 1.8 or a 2 to get a desired sharpness. What I like about these lenses is kind of hard to put a finger on until you see the footage compared to a sharper lens. It's not terribly sharp. It has a nice kind of roll off of that focus. It also has a nice highlight roll off as well. So you see this nice blooming effect going on. It's very dreamy, but I'm gonna throw up some footage of projects that we've shot with these lenses. We did a horror movie for a kind of dreamy Freddy Krueger-y sequence. I also shot an artist's reel, Walker actually, from our studio here. She's also an artist with Cellar Door Art and Design. I shot her a reel for that business of hers using this 50mm lens only. So you're able to see some of the qualities that I'm talking about here. You're gonna see that nice highlight roll off. You're gonna see kind of these dreamy, blooming features, that kind of painterly feel that you're gonna have a hard time finding from a modern lens without some kind of pearlescent filter or a pro mist. That's just kind of built into this lens. The downside of that, however, is if you are looking for a nice, crisp, clean image with these lenses, you might have a hard time. There is a special use case for these, and it's just that artistic decision that you have to make as a cinematographer. I have 4 lenses in this Super Takumar kit. There are a couple more. Specifically, one that I'm looking for is the 85mm. That is a more rare, more sought after lens. Now, the 135 and the 105 specifically have a very long, short focus distance. So that means that you have to be pretty far away from your subject to have them in focus. For video, if you do want the subject, up close to you with that nice compressed background, you may want a closer lens like the 50, or you may want a diopter on the front of that element there. So in terms of using these for a film application, you can see that I've made some modifications here. The first one is going to be this front ring adapter. I've got rings for each size of these lenses. So on the 50mm, I have this 49 to 77, and then I have other rings that adapt to these lenses to get them all up to 77mm front diameter. And that's because my variable ND is a 77mm thread. That way, the same filter fits on every lens. The other thing you'll notice is that all of these lenses have a 0.8 MOD focus ring. And that's because we use focus gears, either the manual version or a wireless follow focus that has that 0.8 gear in. And this makes it very nice and easy to pull focus front and back. Like the 35 has a much shorter focus throw, which makes it harder to get that critical focus. I 3D printed these in TPU plastic and then in a PLA on the outside, so it has this kind of like soft, rubbery, grippy inside, and then that hard gearing for the outside for the teeth to bite onto. So these lenses all have the front element threading, the focus gearing, and then I have an adapter for each of these with a 3D printed back piece. And this is a screw mount design. So all of these Super Takumars have an M42 threaded mount. The nice thing about that is that adapters are cheap. You're able to get an adapter for just about any mount type. This is an L mount adapter. I also have an E mount adapter for each of these for all of Michael's Sony cameras, which I'm shooting on right now. This is the FX30 with a Sigma 18 to 70, I believe, or 18 to 55, I don't know. And that basically allows you to just throw these on to your camera, hook up your focus ring, throw in your filter or your matte box, and you're good to go, just like it's any other cinema lens. What I've seen recently, though, is people doing full-on rehousings. They get all of the glass elements out, they declick that aperture, they increase that focus throw so it's even longer and smoother, and they give it a whole new cinema-style body. This is good for now, though. I don't necessarily want to spend thousands of dollars to rehouse all of these because they're great just as is with the focus ring and the front element and the adapter. The other nice thing about these is the build quality. They are an all metal design. They do have a extension when you throw that focus, so that front element does come out and go in quite a bit. So if you're on a gimbal throwing focus, you may throw off your balance just slightly, especially if there's a front element filter on here. And there is some focus breathing. That's a creative choice as well. If you like or if you hate focus breathing, something to consider. But the build quality other than that is wonderful. These are very old. They have stood the test of time, though. They are built with very high standards, very nice aluminum housing, very strong glass elements. And they really do hold up. I do keep them in a nice foam padded case, but on a day of filming, I'm not going to be concerned about breaking these lenses, and I am very rough on my gear. But I'll start wrapping this video up. The Super Takumar line of lenses are pretty much a no-brainer when it comes to starting off with vintage lenses if that's what you're into. They have a very unique visual quality to them. They have a wonderful build design, and the next best thing is that they're cheap. These lenses can be found for anywhere from 50 to 100 to maybe 300 bucks for that higher end 85. And they're pretty easy to get a hold of on eBay. I found some of these at antique stores even. But yeah, that's about all I've got to say. I would just highly recommend taking a look at these Super Takumar vintage lenses, or any vintage lens you can get your hand on, honestly. It's really fun to throw a piece of old equipment onto a new camera and see what sort of qualities you can get. It's all about just what's right for the story and what's right for your visual language. So play with the choices that you have available to you and see what you can make happen. All that to say, I hope you keep shooting things. Shoot things on vintage glass, shoot things on film, shoot things with your phone. Just remember to be out there and keep creating. Keep an eye out for more gear reviews and more discussions like this from us. We're going to try to start making more content like this in 2025, something that may be useful and something that's unique for filmmakers. And yeah, see you again soon.